Yeah. Twins pod. Oh, we got war veteran Boone Color, PSYOP expert. Right?
Gentlemen, it's good to be here. Speaking of PSYOP, man.
Yeah.
I watch you guys all the time, man.
Oh, thanks.
I got one question for you because I haven't
Yeah.
seen this answer. Do you mind?
Yeah.
You guys are some big boys,
Mm-hmm.
but you're brothers.
Right.
What were the fights like growing up?
You know what? To be honest,
Because you look like you get along all the time, but
Yeah.
I gotta think sometimes one of you got crossed with the other one.
yeah, I think like when we fight, we don't punch, we just strangle each other.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up his face. It's like looking at yourself. Yeah, I can't hurt myself in the face. But so we can strangle each other. I'll kill you, you black mother. But you know what? We've been on this planet almost 50 years now. I could say we probably how many fights? Not fist fights, arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah, fought about. We got in a pretty good one in London though. Oh yeah. I almost killed him in London.
Except for that one time
Throwing suitcases at me. Yeah, we just arrived there. It was
from the
rough
fifth
day.
floor, right? No.
No, Keith was pushing my buttons. We couldn't agree on what we was gonna eat that night because we were trying to lose weight. Was cutting,
Yeah.
and I said, I'm tired of this shit. We just
Lost it.
Yeah, it was weird because we was going to do some comedy shows out there, and customs stopped us. Yeah, we didn't have
immigration
the,
jail.
Yeah, shut up. Let me do the talking. And we didn't have the correct visa to be in London.
Yeah.
So we was stuck in immigration for like hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
They let us out, so it was real stressful. Been flying for 6 hours, so we just got stressed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but we fight, but not like fist fight. No black on black crime between us.
That's fantastic. I think a lot of people can learn from you. I really do.
Right.
I really do.
Especially the black community.
It's great being here because we can't say that.
Shit, I'll say it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a crazy. I mean, I have 9 brothers and sisters, 5 brothers, 4 sisters, and like I said, we would fight terribly.
Oh, yeah.
In our house because it was a small house.
Joe said you hung him out a second floor window.
I did, and you know, and I mean, but you know, when you come outside, you know, and you're together, it's like a great family, and that's important. That was important.
I got an older brother. He retired Army.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got a master. I don't know.
Master Sergeant, probably.
E8 master.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
So we're here, and one of the things that we have, Boone and I, we wrote these books, and the first one there, Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare, Introduction to 5GW, which is what we're involved in right now. This is what we're facing globally, and certainly here in the United States of America. And it's a combination of sort of the different types of warfare, you know. And Boone can go into he goes into the rhyme and verse here, and should, because he's a real expert. But I think probably for you is to tell the audience, because I'm not sure if, you know, there may be some people that know you, but your background is really fascinating. Not only as a, you know, in where you are today, but what got you here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great story, and it's one that I have to give all the credit to God for, because, you know, after I was discharged from the military, I was injured in Iraq. I spent 2 years at Walter Reed Army Medical Center recovering from those injuries, and then I basically left there with a hefty addiction and continued to have a lot of injuries, and that was the thing. But so about 2 years after Walter Reed, I got off all the drugs, and when I got off all the drugs, I got into to veteran advocacy, and it was all spurred on by the fact that I was walking from where we were at the Malone House. I was walking over to the main hospital one day, really crying out to God, saying, "Why don't you do something about this?" And because there was just so much turmoil, so much. Just a lot of problems. I was there during the neglect scandal of 2007. I was there 2006 to 2008, so I was there for 2 years. And I just did that proverbial calling out to God, saying, do something about this. And literally, God, I feel like God called me a bitch. He was like, fuck you do something about it. You know, I gave you the skills, make it happen.
Right.
And it was very directed, and then it was the whole thing, well, who am I? I'm just a sergeant. That would take like a colonel or somebody, you know, who could have some sort of influence. You know, I'm not the guy for that. And then I got off all the drugs, and it was like, no, I think I can be the guy for that. And because people just weren't speaking up in the way about the things that I knew were true. And so I ended up getting a job on a radio show. I released my first book and doing the veteran advocacy thing. And I started doing veteran advocacy in a really weird way, because I started talking about cannabis. And people were like, oh, you can't talk about cannabis. I'm like,
Right.
bullshit, you know, because, you know, I did all the drugs. I did all the drugs that the medical science had to offer, that they said were going to make me better, that they were going to make me helpful.
Right.
It didn't help at all. And then after I checked myself into the VA, and I did two weeks in a lockdown unit, detoxing, coming off all the drugs. But then I got out of there, and I still couldn't sleep. And I was at work, and this young kid says to me, "Man, you look like hell. What's wrong?" I said, "I can't sleep." And he goes, "Why don't you smoke weed?" And I was like, "Fuck you, dude. I don't smoke weed. I'm not one of those guys.
Right.
You know, I'm just not that guy."
Right.
And then I went one more night, and I didn't sleep. And I'm laying there awake thinking, I've literally done everything medical science has to offer. I've taken every pill. I've done every modality. I've gotten up in the morning, watched the sunrise, and go down to reset my circadian rhythms. You know what I mean? Right. I've done the PT. And still I can't sleep. So I'm like, what haven't I tried? I haven't tried cannabis. So the next day I told the kid, "Hey, give me some weed." He gave me some weed, and that night I slept 5 hours. And I hadn't slept 5 hours. I mean, no nightmares, no pain, straight 5 hours. I hadn't done that in almost 5 years. And I thought, this is some bullshit. Right. And my background in psychological operations, I started looking at this whole thing, what made it, how did it become the way that it is, so demonized and everything else? Stigmatized. And then I learned about it. I was like, wait a minute, it's non-toxic to humans. It has the addiction rate of coffee. Right. You can't OD on it.
It's a freaking vegetable.
Okay. And literally, it's safer than grapes.
Right.
I mean, kids die every month drinking energy drinks.
Right.
But cannabis was somehow
Green grapes
illegal.
or red grapes.
Yeah, I think it's the red grapes. But it was safer than grapes because people choke on grapes. Nobody ever choked on weed. Well, they do, but you don't die from it. And this is some bullshit. Right. So the next day, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna try it again. Maybe the last night, maybe I was exhausted. I was 3 days in no sleep." And I was willing to do anything not to go back to the VA and say, "You were right. Let me have my pills back." And that's what pushed me over that edge. So the next night, I smoked weed again. Slept for 5 hours. No pain, no nightmares. I was like, oh, I got to tell everybody.
Right.
I got to tell everybody. And that was really that first thing that I clawed onto with the veteran health and the advocacy. And then I wrote something called the Spartan Pledge, which was the anti-suicide campaign. It's just 2 lines. I will not take my own life by my own hand until I talk to my battle buddy first. My mission is to find a mission to help my warfighter family. You guys know by being in the military that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And then we get out of the military,
especially with us,
especially with you guys. Then you get out of the military, and it's the most amazing thing. And I really liken it to this: what do you call? You go in the military. You're 17, you're 18, you're 19 years old. You build a bond. You become trauma bonded with people. You go through experiences other people don't go through. That does sound like a family. And then you get out of the military. What do you call it when you're being separated from your family? You're orphaned.
Right.
And so when guys get off active duty, it's like being orphaned. So what do you have to do? You have to reestablish. I basically started using the same skills about messaging and campaigns to start building community.
Right.
And so guys will start talking to each other and to take a pledge with each other, because we take pledges very seriously. It's not a joke. Right. So when a warfighter says to another warfighter, "Hey, bitch, when some shit goes down, you fucking call me. You call me. You do what you're going to do because you're a grown man. But you call me first, because don't leave me spinning around this earth wondering what the hell happened and me blaming myself because I wasn't there for you.
Right.
Give me the opportunity." So guys take the Spartan Pledge not for themselves, but they take it for the other guy. So the other guy knows what to do in that situation. So it's a battle drill. It's what to do when you don't know what to do.
Just the idea, the word separation, when they separate us from the military, you're being, like, if you guys were separated,
Right.
You're separated from something, it's like you're like being left out there. You're just being pushed away, and you're being separated from something that you loved, right?
Right.
You love being with your battle buddies, you love being in the military, you loved your team, and now we're going to separate you. We use that word, separation, right?
Yep.
And it's the whole stigma of why we have an incredible level still of suicide rates for people that have been separated from the military.
Right.
And I think the numbers were always 22. I actually think we're higher than that now. But
Well, when they first came out with that number 22 a day, that was with only 8 states reporting. So that number could have easily been 3-4 times higher.
Yeah, I remember when I was getting out of the military, we had to take a class before we checked out because a lot of people suffer from depression.
right.
And going back to the civilian life. Just this morning, I was looking at TikTok where a guy was getting out of the Army. He bursted into tears because he didn't know what to do. His family was gone. He didn't have no identity anymore.
It's an identity crisis. That's exactly right. And that's the thing that we don't understand. That's why you see guys. I have so much respect for a lot of the military apparel companies. You know, like the flag on your arm there. You know, that came. People don't realize that, but that came from the military uniform. You know, we transferred it over to T-shirts, and in past generations of war, guys would come home and they would still wear their fatigues or become fatigues. You know, so they could identify. But nowadays, there's military apparel. You know, T-shirts and hats and everything else. And so people they can identify each other, and they still have that sense of identity. And I'll tell you, since 2010 and now, this community has truly built itself, has created an identity unlike before. Before you had the veteran service organizations, but now you've got, I mean, look at Irreverent Warriors, you know, look at Vet TV, look at Black Rifle Coffee, look at Grunt Style. They have an entire industry that is there solely so veterans can stay connected. They can remain in the family. And I tell people all the time, you know, hey, when you get out of the military, first thing you do is you get checked in, you find the veterans in your community. And because they're the ones who are going to tell you, hey, this is the claim you need to file, or hey, this is the great doc at the VA, or hey, this is what's going on for your educational benefits, or hey, you know, get down to the vet center and check in with them, you know, once a month or so just to keep your head straight and find out what's going on. That's your network. And so, you know, you call it on active duty, it's a little bit different because you're there under contract, you're forced to be there. So you have to find that network when you get off active duty. But once that happens, once you reestablish community and you know what to do when you don't know what to do, the suicide rate goes like that.
Right. You need structure.
You need structure. And since then, I've been promoting stem cells, psychedelics. I think psychedelics are absolutely amazing.
We just started psychedelics. I sleep so good now.
I
get so much work done. My energy went up. And I sleep so good.
Oh, the microdosing. You're doing psilocybin microdosing?
Yeah, microdosing.
Absolutely love it, you know. And, you know, the floods, the ibogaine floods, getting guys unaddicted, you know, stopping unretractable depression. And it's totally ridiculous. You know, the VA was moving in that direction, and the FDA came out and said MDMA is addictive or potentially addictive. No. That is completely a lie. You know, and if anybody goes back and they look what was happening with psychedelics, and I'm not talking hippie, dope-smoking love stuff, I'm talking the medical science. In the 60s, psychedelic medications were actually curing addictions, curing depression, alcoholism, curing it. And then somebody said, okay, what is the mechanism of this? Okay, well, it's reestablishing the serotonin in the brain. So instead of doing that, what did pharma do? Pharma comes out and goes, we're going to come out with these SSRIs to give you a little bit of serotonin. A little, so you have to take it every single day.
Makes you addicted.
But then you're addicted to it. Now you're stuck on it. It only worked for 30% of people when they tried it. But the psychedelics, I mean, from the time I learned guys were going down to Mexico and figuring this out on their own, it became such a thing. And the United States, again, just like they did with cannabis, complete psychological operation, it is a lie. You know, as much as I hate the military-industrial complex, I can't stand the medical-industrial complex. Pharmaceutical companies. There's some great stuff that's happened. It saved a lot of lives. But the manipulation of government that they do, which sets the laws and says you and you and you and me can't do something to save your own life that is non-toxic to humans and has the addiction rate of coffee, is total bullshit. And that's just common sense. Now, if people want to go back and, you know, tell me stories about what happened at Haight-Ashbury in 1968, okay, that's fine. That's that time and place. We're talking about doing things responsibly, but also having the tools to take responsibility for ourselves. That's right. So that's my campaign for the veteran community.
Oh, yeah, we just partner. What's the name of that organization to help veterans get off smoking? There's other alternatives.
Smokelessvets.org.
Smokelessvets.org. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, and then we had a football player, and he told me about the psychedelics, and man, it increases your productivity, and it helps you sleep like a baby.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've gone, you know, I've gone down to Mexico. I've sat in ceremony. You know, I've done 9 grams of shrooms with DMT.
I'm not at that level yet.
Well, I'll tell you, I really wasn't either, and I didn't just jump into it. You know,
said
I did
shrooms.
Shrooms. You know, psilocybin. But what DMT is the only thing that creates neurogenesis. So myself, I was discharged from the military with 30% disability just for brain damage. And since I've done these types of treatments, that brain damage has now been assessed at 10%.
Now it rewires your brain.
It rewires your brain, gets rid of the trauma clusters, builds new neurons, builds your brain. Neurogenesis is a real thing.
Everything that he's talking about is not just for veterans.
No.
There's people that have had trauma from accidents or from, you know, just from life, you know, their lifestyle, whatever. And these are the kinds of things, and the big pharmaceutical industry will not address this stuff because it'll take away from their ability to be able to addict you to something else.
There were times when they were giving me opiates. This is crazy. They were giving me opiates, and I'd look at it because they say how much was spent for this prescription.
Right.
I was on like 90 milligrams of morphine, 70 milligrams of OxyContin routinely, like daily, which is disgusting. It's crazy. Right. But they were pushing it out there. And then
doctors was giving it to you.
Like I wasn't buying off the street. This was my VA prescription.
Right.
This was my VA prescription. It was one painkiller for the painkiller, and the other one was for breakthrough pain. What does breakthrough pain? It means you got a tolerance, so take some more shit.
Right.
That was the breakthrough pain. I encourage everybody to go watch that film, Dope Sick.
Yeah,
that series Dope Sick really lays it out. I wish they put a little bit more, of course, for myself, they would have put a little bit more on what was happening in the veteran community because that shit was sponsored in whole by the government to veterans of our country.
Look, everybody, inflation is out of control, and this problem is only going to get worse. The value of silver and gold has been steadily rising, while the value of the American dollar has been falling. PurpleBar.com is changing the game, making it easy for all of us to protect our financial futures. The bars are perforated so they can easily break apart and can be conveniently exchanged. Go to PurpleBar.com and use promo code Hodgetwins and you get 5% off gold bars. And you get 10% off silver bars. Yeah.